good morning. It's still Daybreak Africa, reaching you here from our studios in Ondo City. Of course, I'm Ezekiel, Ogar, and as earlier said between I and Angela, this morning we shall be talking on Ondo State's Governorship post-election analysis. With us in the house is a historian and a former chairman, SDP Ondo chapter. We have Honorable Stephen Adewale here with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning and welcome on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a while, I must say.
Yes,
It's safe to say Happy New Year.
I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Well, I'm very certain that you followed up with the election process from top to bottom. So, yes. For it, what did you see spectacular about this election?
Well, aside from being a stakeholder, I'm also from Ondo State, so it shows that everyone who comes from the state was interested in the electoral process. Well, in terms of what was spectacular about the election, to me, I don't really think there is any. Personally, I was not surprised maybe with the outcome or even with what happened in the days leading to the election. But basically, what we can describe as a spectacular news about what happened was that this will be the first time in the history of Ondo State where a political party will be winning the election 3 times in a row. For the state started in 1976. When we started when the state was created, rather in 1976, it was under the military era. So the military government was there, excuse me, until 1979, when the second republic started, started, and at that time we had Adewale Ajashi, late Adewale Ajashi, who came from UPN, so he won the election. Even by 1983, though he lost the election to Omoboriowo, to another political party. Then in 1993, during the Babangida era, we had Olumilua, who was there for about 2 years. Then military came in until 1999. Now, if you look at what happened between 1999 till about 2017, you realize that different political parties always imagine. 1999, we had Alliance for Democracy, Adebayo Adefarati, who was there until 2003. By 2003, Adebayo Adefarati was voted out. Olusegun Agagu of PDP came in, and he was there for 4 years, and people voted him out, and they voted in Labour, Olusegun Mimiko of Labour Party. Mimiko was the first governor in the history of the state that won his second time election. So he was there for 8 years. Now, after the 8 years, Mimiko moved to Labour Party before the end of his second term. Now he made effort to promote Jegede. Meanwhile, Jegede PDP was voted out, and APC and Akeredolu of APC, later Akeredolu became the governor of the state. Now Akeredolu was there for 8 years. Now this election now shows that APC is now in power, has been in power for 12 straight years in the history of the state. Yes, I think that's kind of spectacular, but in the real sense of the word, it's not really surprising, because if you look at the political elite in the state, have started showing demonstrating that, showing signs that they did not have what it takes, or what we can call political backbone, to stand as oppositions. So virtually everybody wants to stand at the angle where the state resources. You know, with the ability
of APC to actually conquer 18 local governments, yes. I mean, it's no small feat. So is it more like to say the voice of the people was heard, considering this landslide win? Or is it just politics as usual?
Well, in a way, we can say yes. Like I said, in the months leading to the election, realize a lot of things actually happened. Ondo State, as of today, is more like could be referred to as a one-party state, because virtually all the big names in Ondo politics, they have all moved into APC. Even the Olusegun Mimiko, they claim that he's not a member of APC, but virtually all his loyalists who have been with him for years, they are now in APC. So in every local government today, all the renowned politicians in those local governments, they are now in APC. So it was not really a surprise when you see the outcome of the election. What should even be more, what we should be, and I think another thing that we should focus on is the fact that though the APC was able to score 300,000, but in a state rather, where we had about nearly 2 million registered voters, the fact that APC would only win, the winner was only able to score about 312,000 or thereabout, shows that there was political apathy. It means a lot of overwhelming majority of the people in the state did not come out to vote. But it was not really surprising because it's obvious. The structure matters in everything. That's why even in countries like Tanzania, despite the fact that Julius Nyerere died as far back died about 4 decades ago, till date there are still people voting for Nyerere's party, believing just because of Nyerere, because the structure is there. If you go to South Africa, you see what ANC is doing. So now in Nigeria, structure also the role of structures cannot be overemphasized. If you don't have the political structure, you are not going to go anywhere, and that's one of the challenges that the opposition parties have to address as far as Nigeria politics is concerned.
The thing with Nigeria politics is when you say things are structure, it could mean something different, but we tend to interpret it as individuals quite differently. I was talking to some person, and then when we talk about structure, they feel structure means just how much a political party could garner for elections. So would you mind interpreting what structure means and how you tend to interpret it?
You are correct, but in a way, when we are talking of political structure in the real sense of the word, we are talking of a situation where a political party have physical presence in every unit, every polling unit in the state. In Ondo State today, we have about 3,098 polling units. Now, in each of those units, if you visit any of those, you are definitely going to see an APC member in each of those units. So you are likely to see PDP members in at least maybe about 50% of those units. And you can see from the result that it reflects from the result. Don't forget that there are people, ordinarily, that if you look at the social media, why do you think that people will deliberately sit down, they will come up with lies and they will throw it on social media, and a lot of people who did not know the genesis of the issue will start supporting blindly. So, and the same thing is also applicable to politics. There are people who will decide to vote not because they don't even know whether it is to their interest or not. They just want to vote because some people around them decide to vote for that particular person. Even in the university, people do that. Many times they'll be going during the student union election, they'll be asking, okay, who are you voting for? Once you say you are voting for this, that's who they are going to vote for. So it's like that. That's the importance of structure. So if that structure is not there, no matter what you do, for example, look at Labour Party in 2003 national general election. Look at how look at the performance of Labour Party, but at a point it shows that structure is still required. Why you need the structure is that we live in a country where a lot of our political leaders, they are mischievous. They know that in a situation where 2 or 3 people are contesting, and they know that people might support another person, so the only thing they can do to actually emerge as a winner is for them to cheat. So it would have been difficult for them to cheat if other parties have structures, because remember, there's a polling unit. Each polling unit, you must have a polling unit agent, and those polling unit agents, if you have a structure, that's the only time you can actually have those agents in all those in each of those polling units. By the time you have them, after the voting exercise and all that, then the counting will be done. Once the counting is done, then they are going to write the results on the form. So then your agent will have a copy. That particular copy, by the time you are able to collate all the copies. So even if the INEC now decide to conspire with the ruling party and change the result of the election, you can take that evidence to court. But the challenge we have been facing in the recent past is that those evidence have not always been there. In 2007, for example, in this same Ondo state, Olusegun Agagu of PDP and Olusegun Mimiko of Labour Party contested, and INEC declared Agagu as the winner. But because Olusegun Mimiko was able to present the present the evidence in each of the polling units, so eventually court overturned the result. So that's the importance of structure. If that structure was not there for Mimiko of Labour Party in 2007, then Mimiko would not have emerged. But what we face in the recent times is a situation where party will not have structure, yet they will decide to go to court. And by the time you are going to court, you are just going to waste the court's time.
Let's talk a little about SDP. Is it still the issue of structure? I mean, the last time we spoke about when you went for the presidential elections and all that, you did mention the issue of structure as one of the flaws the party, amongst other parties, tend to have. But considering this election, I tend to believe SDP tends to actually try to pull the force. But the question at this point is, what went wrong with SDP? Is it still structure?
Now, the opposition parties were not doing it. They didn't do enough. I don't want to limit my analysis to SDP, even though I'm still going to talk about it. But I really don't want us to focus on that. But let's look at the opposition parties generally, aside from APC, even PDP. Let's look at them, the performance of the opposition parties. Realize that the performance was nothing to write home about. But many people are only focusing on what happened on the election.
When you say performance, is it more like campaign?
I mean, yes, in terms of campaign. Okay. You all live in the state. How many political parties actually come out to campaign massively? There are things you do without even having the kind of structure we are talking about. How about house-to-house campaign, for example? How many political parties visited your house and knocked at your door and told you, please vote for our candidate? And aside from that, if you even look at the caliber, the quality of candidates that were presented by these political parties, you realize that by the time you are listening to them, you'll be dozing off. Many of them, it appears as they appear as accidental candidates, people who do not really know what they want to do. Many of them were even showing the signs that they were not even ready to even run for the office, and that was made clear by some of the candidates a few days, like 24 hours to the 48 hours to the election day, when they decided to endorse the APC candidate. So it shows that those individuals, many of them were just holding that ticket for them to use it to negotiate with the ruling party. So the quality is not there. So it's not even about the politics. Look at even PDP. People's Democratic Party in Ondo State is actually a force, a great force. But look at the quality of the candidate that was even presented by the by the PDP. So the quality is not there. So unlike when you meet with people and people will know that, okay, this person knows what he or she is talking about. We did not see that. The campaign process, they made it a one-party affair. It was only APC that you see everywhere. And the funny thing is that even the APC too, because they knew that it was going to be an easy ride, you could not point at anything that even the governor himself actually did any statement, any campaign statement he made that we could say, okay, yeah, no, this thing actually what we watch if you monitor the interview, the debate, yes, on channel TV, you cannot blame a channel when opposition start crying foul, blaming a channel for inviting people. How do you blame them? Because it was obvious to everybody in the state that these were the only two visible candidates. All the other candidates, they were nowhere to be found, and people were expecting miracle to happen on election day. No, it doesn't work that way. And another thing is that I don't want to talk about the buying and selling or whatever.
We're getting there.
The challenge is that the political parties are not actually doing enough. We can talk about whether people are actually ready or not. Yes, that we can talk about that. But in terms of preparation, in terms of how, whether in terms of readiness, I did not see much of that in any of the candidates.
Well, you tried to generalize the question and then you more like pick PDP as the case study. I want to talk about SDP.
I don't want to talk about SDP because I'm a member of SDP, and I don't want it to appear as if I was criticizing my candidate.
So
but if I wanted to tell you, what I will tell you is that the analysis I've already made, definitely I was talking about double. Then our candidate was also I don't think any of you ever listened to our candidate and hear any progressive statement made by him. So that's exactly my point, that all the opposition parties, we are all guilty of what happened. So we shouldn't blame the APC at the end of the FAPC because the opposition parties had failed to do enough, especially the candidate. Most times there are people in the party that are actually ready. I know of SDP, for example. I know the state executive, and I know the effort that the state executive put into the election. I know the amount of sleepless nights that they spent during the election period. I know the amount of personal resources that went into that campaign. But if you want to compare the commitment of the party leaders, if you want to compare that, if you want to place that side by side with the performance of the candidate and with even the body language of the candidate, you realize that the two, that by the time you place it side by side, you will now have to look far before you understand why SDP failed in the last election.
Well, keeping the political area aside, INEC, what do you think of INEC performance this time? Remember that just the concluded Edo elections, after that, which many people had many criticism about, they came out to say they were ready for Ondo election. So would you say they actually performed very well in this Ondo election? Do you think INEC actually? Well,
I'm not going to use Ondo election as a yardstick.
Okay.
To judge, that's on a personal note. I'm not going to use Ondo election as a yardstick to judge INEC performance. Here is the reason. The election is just like a relationship between a willing seller and a willing buyer. So we all know where it's going. We all know where they are going already. And why I did not want to use it as a yardstick was that even before the election, it was obvious that if assuming the going got tough for the governor, it was obvious. The body language of INEC before the election already showed who they are going to favor, because we saw the statements being made by the resident electoral commission of INEC in Ondo State. Even the other members of INEC in the state, the other appointees, some of them were elected, were card holders of APC. So in a situation like that, you don't expect fair play. If, for example, I'm a member of SDP, so if you are setting up an electoral agency or umpire, and you said, okay, I should come, somebody like me should come and edit. So you don't need to go and say, okay, even if this guy, no matter how good, no matter how unbiased, how incorruptible he is likely to favor or to have some sympathy for this particular party. So there are a lot of people in Nigeria, in a country of over 200 million, where we have a lot of people who have never gotten involved in politics and who are doing well in various aspects of life. Why do we have to go and bring in politicians to head different positions in INEC? Why don't you bring these individuals who have justified themselves, who have done well for themselves out there, who have a lot to lose in terms of integrity and bring them on board? So that is it. So, but the election itself, everything, like I said, went smoothly. There was no opposition, did not really do much. So opposition parties did not really do much to give the ruling party the run for their money. So we cannot really use it, unlike what happened in a place like maybe Edo, for example, and maybe in Kogi in the recent times.
Many people are of the opinion that INEC should be looked into, considering the fact that they ought to be an independent body. But one way or the other, we see how politics tend to play in and out of it. Do you think that INEC needs a reform, total reform?
No, we have been saying this for a very long time, that INEC, we keep saying that there are agencies that require autonomy. There are agencies that without autonomy, they are not going to be able to deliver their constitutional duty as stated or stipulated in the constitution. One of those agencies happen to be INEC. So, and EFCC is another agency, but INEC is our subject of discussion. Now, if you are looking at INEC, you want to look at our INEC and you look at the electoral umpire in the of the United States of America, you realize that they are not even they are far to each other in terms of people who have been appointed. Over there is autonomy. Even the president of the country cannot just decide to fire the head of the electoral umpire there. But here in Nigeria, even the INEC overall boss, not talk of even the REC, or the one in Abuja, is responsible and reporting directly to the president. Is there because the president of the country is happy with him. If the president decides tomorrow that he has to go, then he will have to go. Meanwhile, that ought not to be the case. We need a situation whereby the INEC, as stated in the constitution, that autonomy will be clear. Once the president appoints the electoral umpire, then you have no right to remove them. So it's only the court. If you feel that the person is misbehaving, then you take the case to the court, and the court can now decide after you've already proved that the person is actually corrupt, then they will remove him or her. But in our country, reverse is the case. President can wake up and decide to do otherwise. So we have a lot of issues, and that is exactly one of the problems, because we should know most of our people, they tend to look at what happened on the election day. But election in Nigeria is not won on election day. Election in Nigeria is won days before the election, even months before the election. The processes, before you don't even need few days to the election, you don't need soothsayers to tell you who is likely to emerge as the winner. The reason is that you have to look at the steps that have been taken during the campaign and during the electionary processes. For example, if the resident electoral commissioner happen to be a card holder of a card carrier of APC, then all our other members will also card carriers of APC. So that alone has already showed that this is where this electoral umpire is going to tilt towards. And in such a situation, it's going to be easier for them to manipulate the result, especially in an environment where opposition parties are not doing enough to make sure that they have polling unit agents, a reliable polling unit agents in each of the units. So, but that autonomy is not negotiable if we actually want to make progress as a country.
Well, you tend to actually question opposition's strong will to really come against the ruling party. I tend to wonder campaign strategies they tend to adopt. Is it more like the winning candidate's campaign strategy contributed to their success, or was it more of having some officials in INEC being card carriers of the APC? Do you think that actually tend to dampen the morale of some of the opposition parties? So probably we just have to do less, because even if we do more than we ought to, we still will lose. Is that more like the morale? I mean, considering the gross landslide.
That's why it's called democracy. We all know that in democracy, you lose some, you win some. So if we refer to ourselves as opposition, there is a reason why they call it opposition. Opposition means that you continue to serve as a watchdog over the ruling party, over the activities of the ruling party. Then you continue to criticize and present yourself as a viable alternative. Look at what is happening in the United Kingdom now. We have the Labour Party as the ruling party. Now the Prime Minister is from there, but you realize that the Conservatives, you see what the statement, every statement that the head of Conservatives, that's Kemi Badenoch, you realize that anytime they are criticizing the government, they are presenting a viable alternative, that this is how we would have done it if we were to be in power. That is actually what the opposition is meant to do. But the question is, how many opposition parties in Nigeria are doing that? How many press statements do you read every day from any of the even including the PDP? It used to be that every opposition party, the most important department in opposition party is it's a public relations department. You have people who are experienced. Then you also have researchers who will be researching every day on every statement made by the governor, for example. And we don't do, even at the federal level, people don't do that. Most of the leaders in Abuja, in either one political party or the other, as chairman, secretary, and the rest, they are only there because they just want something that will come to their through their table in terms of finance. So nobody is ready to actually sensitize the people. So that's why most times you can't really blame our people if they decide to do otherwise, because it's actually, like I said, it's a democracy. If people decide that I'm going to collect money to vote, then that's their choice. So as long as we are ready to live, they are ready to live by their choice. So you can't blame them. The only thing we can do is for us to keep criticizing, for us to keep condemning it, that this act is bad. So we'll keep talking. But most overwhelming majority of people in the opposition parties today, many of them are not ready, especially those who sit atop the party in Abuja. So many of them are not ready, and for those who are ready in the state, by the time you are taking certain steps that appears as if it was going to threaten the source of finance of the opposition party leaders in Abuja, they will quickly find a way to rein in your excesses. So these are the problems that we have. As far as Nigeria is
before we
concerned.
go on with the program, we'll go for a very short break, then we'll be back to continue
Thank you.
to discuss.
This is more like the second half of the discuss for this morning. Of course, it's talking about governorship post analysis here in Ondo State.
Yeah, and just before we went, you were earlier talking about the problems we face, especially when it comes to politics and even the parties individually. Now, I would like to go into the area of performance when it comes to the electorates themselves. We saw the voter apathy right here in Ondo election. From 2.5 registered voters, I think 1.7 thereabout participated in the election, which is really, really low. Do you think that people are beginning to lose interest in, performing their rights in elections in Nigeria? Yes,
it's not only limited to Nigeria. Even if you look at the United States of America during this recently concluded presidential election, you realize that the number of people who voted, they were not even up to 20% of the total number of voters. So it's not really peculiar to Nigeria or to Ondo State, so to say. But here is the challenge. You realize that most of our people, that's why I'm saying that we have to do a lot. The institutions, it's not, if we say democracy, there are lots of agencies that make democracy to work. There are a lot of mechanisms that are there to ensure that democracy works. And that's why you see that any country that practices democracy, international organizations, they do spend a lot of money to make sure that those agencies that can serve as watchdog, so that they are well funded. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, one of that agency that's civil society organization, CSOs. Now so many of them, they now have one political affiliation or the other. So they will collect the money because it should be their responsibilities to sensitize the people. It is not only the responsibility of the opposition parties. Remember that most of the opposition parties, they suffer from even lack of paucity of funds. So many of them don't have what it takes to actually go out and sensitize people and tell them that this is the right thing to do. But so the harms that ought to do that under democracy is actually civil society organizations, and that's why you see that every year billions and hundreds of millions of dollars are being channeled to the country through the international organizations to all those CSOs. But what do you see? You realize that most of the CSOs, by the time they are going out, they are going to change the topic. Many of them are not interested in addressing all these things, because first we need to let our people understand that whether you vote, whether you decide not to vote, not to exercise your franchise, and decide to sit at home, and the people, you and the person who went to the polling unit and decide to sell his or her vote, you and him, you are both guilty, because yes, that person compromised, but you too, you have also decided not to even exercise your right at all. So at the end of the day, you are sitting down at home, and the person that went ahead and sold his or her future out, the person has ended up selling even the future of the sit-at-home voters. He has ended up selling their future. Then by the time the leader emerges, then all of us, we are going to live under the leader. So if we are able to sensitize our people, then people will come out. And the good thing about our electoral process now is that it's becoming more peaceful by the day. In the last election, you see that there was no rancor, no animosity. Everything went smoothly without any problem. So, and even though, yes, we have pockets of violence here and there, but unlike, there was a time in this country when you go to the polling unit and realize that 2 or 3 people have died, even up till about 2007. But now look at what is happening. It shows that we are actually making progress in terms of how we organize our electoral process and how we vote. So if that is happening, then our people have no excuse not to go out there and exercise their patience. People will sit down, they will criticize Tinubu, they will criticize the APC, yet they will sit down. Over one thing I've come to realize based on experience is that people who criticize the government, many of them, they don't vote. They will rather sit down at home. Even on the election day, they will continue to criticize that government. They will now allow the people who are in support of the government, or people who do not know their right from the left, who never know whether to sell their vote or not to sell that, they will allow them to decide or to determine their future for them. So these are the problems. So we have that problems here. So, and it will continue until we're able to sensitize our people, until we're able to convince them that we are the one, that our destiny is in our hands. It's not just about not selling your vote. Gone are the days when we tell people not to sell their vote. In fact, these days we have a case of willing buyers. In those days, political parties will even tell you that you have to show me who you are voting for. But these days you don't even have to do that, because it's a matter of willing buyers. They will get it. I was in about 2 polling units in the last election. You see them, voters will come in, they will be asking you that their vote is for that my vote is for the highest bidder. That APC was giving out 10,000, PDP was giving out 5,000. Some people will collect both the money from the APC and PDP. They will go ahead because they will go ahead and vote for APC. It shows that this time around it's a case of a willing buyer, not a case of somebody that is being forced to do something. Are you getting my point? So, but that doesn't mean that is not a demonstration that the entire people of Ondo State are like that. Like I said, APC was able to win with 300 and something thousand. All the votes together, and APC and PDP had 117,000. So the entire voters, people who voted was not even up to, they were not up to 600. They were not even up to 500. Up to 600,000. The entire voters. And meanwhile, in a state where we had about, like you said, about 2 million or 2 point something million voters. So it shows that over 2 million voters were sitting down in their house, at least nearly 2 million voters. Meanwhile, those people, they will be the one that will be criticizing the government. So then why don't you go out and exercise your right, so that how many people are the government going to buy their vote? Like you could say, there was a time that they will just seize they will just destroy the ballot box, and that ends it. But now, because they know that at times you will even vote, they will count it, something else will be declared in Abuja. But now it's no longer like that. Whatever is counted at the polling unit is what you are going to see. So though there are times that they will change it on IREF, just as it happened in 2023 election. But if you do not have polling unit agent that you can use to prove them wrong, you are not going to win anything in court. So we just need to let our people know this. We need to keep sensitizing our people that, look, our future is in our hands. Now, politicians are already respecting the masses. They know that masses votes count. That's why you see them, they will bring money to the polling unit, especially the ruling party. So now we now need to do more and let the people know that these politicians know your power. So please then go out there and vote. So if we continue to witness the voters' apathy, we are not, it's not Tinubu that we are, it's not, that is going to affect. It's not any member of the ruling party that is going to affect. It's not even all these individuals who already do well in the country that it will affect. It's going to affect the common masses who sit down at home, and it will also affect their future.
Well, I can't say for sure if citizens of Ondo are actually comfortable and content with how APC tends to run the affairs of the state. But are we expected to see anything different? Are we to expect anything different from the newly elected governor?
Well, I don't think. I don't think the people of Ondo State, because obviously, like I said, it's democracy, and what it means is that during the election, for you to have crowned the effort of APC, it shows that you are contented with what APC is doing. So that's basically what it means. So it shows that they are happy. If they are not happy, they will not come there, and they will know that APC, there are times that you will be so angry that you will not even want to eat the food of your enemy. So if you see APC as your enemy, and if I feel that APC is my enemy, APC's policy is affecting not only, it's not only affecting me, it's affecting the future of my children. If I know that the policy that APC government is rolling out is going to affect the amount I'm going to pay as the school fees of my child in the coming period, then the best thing to do is for me to vote out the APC. But if I decide to go to the polling unit and I said, look, I want to sell, I want to sell to the SDA, I said, oh, it's APC that is paying 10,000, and I collect the money and I vote, it means that I'm contented with APC. I'm happy with them. That's why I could go ahead and collect APC money. So I believe that people are happy with APC. That's exactly what it demonstrated. 300 winning an election, there was no single local government where you see that there was a massive a kind of vote that people say people are not happy with APC. The governor won easily and won everywhere in each of the even in the leading other opposition party candidates polling units, the governor won there. And you get my point. So it shows that they're happy. So, and I don't see in fact it's going to get worse, and people, we should be ready for that. Why it will be worse is that now the number of political arena who are in APC today, we have never had the large concentration of such number of politicians in a single political party before. Like I said, in the entire state today, you see that in every local government, all the renowned politicians, they have crossed to APC. So, and that should tell you, okay, look at even before the election, recently the governor came out and announced the appointment of 387 special advisors. He appointed special advisors in each of the even up to the ward level in Ondo State. And meanwhile, it did not assign them any portfolio, because they only use them to mobilize for the people for the election. Then they went out and appointed a lot, even commissioners, a lot of strategic appointments in agencies and in agencies and different commissions. So, and each of these special assistants, even despite the fact that they had no portfolio, they were paying them 250,000 naira as salary every month. So that is definitely going to continue, because the governor will definitely have to continue to oil the base, and because the happiness is going to be his own happiness. If those people are not happy, then definitely his position is going to be threatened, especially in the coming election or whatever. So he will have to make sure that he will have to keep them happy. And don't forget that many of these people, before they move into APC, a lot of negotiations must have taken place. They must have promised them that this was all we're going to do. Before Mimiko, for example, before Mimiko's followers, all the people had been with Mimiko since 1999, before they could decide to move en masse to APC. That should tell us that they could not have moved without some negotiations, without some things, without them, they must have agreed on certain things. So, and the governor will have to implement that. And don't forget that is going to be on the so it's going to be on the from the, so going to come from the from the budget of the from the revenue generation of the state. And in the state presently now, with the state is even struggling with the ones we pay this 73,000 naira with 73,000 naira minimum wage. You are hardly going to have anything left, because remember that we have a lot of political appointees that they also have to service their interest. Now, what are you now going to have left for capital projects? So these are the challenges, and it's not as if the state is generating have a new source of a new stream of revenue generation. It's only what we have been generating before in the recent, that's what we are still relying on. So I don't really see how that is going to change, or that is going to move the state forward. It's definitely
considering
going to affect
the mass decamp of opposition party to the APC, not just in Ondo State, but in Edo State, Nigeria generally, even down to the presidential level. Do we still have opposition party at all? You know, considering the fact where PDP is currently still fighting internal crisis, and we have lots of them moving down to APC and all that, can we really boast of opposition party, or we just have clients open for negotiations at any time?
Also, do you see any time that maybe we just have a particular party, political party in Nigeria?
In Nigeria, they said never say never. And one thing, the funny thing about Nigeria is that Nigeria is a country where you cannot really predict what people can do. You can wake up in the morning and everything will be peaceful and calm. Before you know, something is already trending online and is becoming a major issue. And this is a 21st century where social media play a lot of roles. So that's why I cannot say that maybe in the coming period that this is going to happen. But presently, as of today, it's obvious that we have no opposition party. Even at the national level, we had no opposition party. Like I told you earlier, one of the major role of opposition party is to serve as watchdog on what government is doing. You criticize the government, you analyze. After analysis, then you sit down, you now started analyzing what should have been an alternative. For example, in this Ondo State, when I was the SDP chairman, and that was when late Akeredolu was ill at that time, we had to take him up, and at the point we realized that even the deputy governor that we fought for, who is now the sitting governor, was not doing well, that he was not showing interest in what should bring development to the state. Then we started criticizing him, and we're not just criticizing. Look at one of our critics at that time was what brought back these school buses that were there, because at that time we're using the bus which was donated to Ondo community by the SDP presidential candidate in 2023 general election, Prince Adewale. We're using it as a yardstick where we started analyzing a lot of things with the amount of money the state is generating, and what can be budgeted for it. Now we have at least those buses around now. So that is what opposition party can do. But it's difficult to have that kind of opposition party because you are going to make a lot of enemies. And another thing is that you must have been at least financially okay to an extent before you can criticize the government, because if you don't do that, it costs a lot of money. At that time, just to criticize the government for virtually every day, we were spending nothing less than 180,000 naira just for us to pay Punch newspaper, different newspapers, online newspapers, and all that. So, all that. In fact, we have one of your correspondents that was in Akure that was working for us at that time as a consultant. So we were not paying him; he was just doing it happily. But he was the one handling all the online source for us, and every day we paid something close to 100,000 naira. Even that's why at a point they started criticizing, the APC started criticizing the governor at that time. That's the present governor, that it was the one funding us for us to fight his former boss. Akeredolu was on the sick bed at the time, because they were wondering that which political party can get this kind of money. So aside from having the brawn, you also need to have the resources. So those are the things. So if you are not that committed, you are not going to see reasons why you should spend your personal money to invest on something like that, where you could have used it for something else. And the country where people are looking for every opportunity to make money out of what they do. So we don't have that's why I said we don't have political backbone to fight, to do all these necessary things. So, but in the coming, I don't see the time when Ondo State will, when Nigeria or Ondo State will become a renowned one-party state. The reason is that we still have people in Nigeria who are not on the same side of the bed with this political elite, who actually mean well for the country. So those individuals will continue to speak up. It's just that their voices might be drowned in the overwhelming voices of the majorities who feel that they are supporting this. But the truth is, it will be there on record. So one thing is that even the US that we are talking about today, look at this the movement, the Martin Luther King Jr.'s movement that eventually led to the abolition of this segregation in the buses and all that. It did not start at that time. It did not start in that 1960s. It started as far back as even 1888. But it took years. A lot of people died. People never paid attention. They didn't notice. But a time came that people started paying attention. So if we keep talking, if we continue to talk, even if it is just a lone voice, if we continue to talk, realize that a time might come that it will become a philosophy. People will start embracing the idea. They will start seeing it. In the last 2023 election, people did that to a Labour Party, for example. Many people followed Labour Party because they wanted an alternative. But the problem is that the way we run we've not gotten to the level where we can actually say we are supporting a political party because of its ideology, because of what it can do. Because if you listen to even the OB of Labour Party at that time, most of the policies that he espoused, it was not radically different from what the APC was doing. That's why you see when they were talking about the removal of subsidy, all of them were saying, all the leading candidates, including the Labour Party candidate, said, I will remove it on the first day. People were asking them, have you thought about the implication? What other mechanisms are you going to put in place to make sure that you are able to change the effect? Nobody think about that. So those are the things, and you see that it showed when we're telling them, for those of us that were not supporting Labour Party at that time, we look like a name, but we're saying no. When I listen to people, you know that this person actually have this point, this person know what, but I did not see that in the Labour Party candidate, and we're telling people that don't just vote with emotion. Now look at what is happening, even at the National Assembly. All the Labour Party candidates that emerged, many of them never contested. Many of them, even some bikemen, many of them won. It's a good thing. I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but as a bikeman, even if you want, you must know what you are going to do. But what I'm saying is that people voted at that time not because they need those candidates. They voted because it's Obi's party, this Labour Party. Now they are in Abuja now. When they wanted to give out, when the National Assembly came up with 150 million naira budget for Jeep, and the Labour Party leadership told its members not to collect, not to receive it. They were the first who came and said no, that we are going to receive it. Now, what has been a difference in terms of politics that Labour Party that has been introduced by Labour Party now? Even my own party, SDP, have two candidates there. Have you ever heard of any SDP candidate at the end? I mean, SDP has two senators. Have you heard of any policy from any SDP member there? So it's more or less like, it's not like APC house, and we have PDP members there. So all I'm saying is that we will definitely get to that level where we'll start scrutinizing the qualification of each individual. But for now, we are still at the level where we vote with emotion. Either we vote with emotion by money, or probably it comes from my village, or it comes from my area, just as many people voted for Tinubu at that time, or they voted for Buhari in 2015. So we'll keep doing that. But I don't see the state becoming a one-party state, or I don't see the country becoming a one-party.
You tend to passively mention the governor's future inability to pay the minimum wage. Would you rather advise retrenchment? Would you actually see what would you expect the governor to do first to actually prove he's in there to make things work?
Payment of minimum wage is non-negotiable. I'm not saying that it's not going to pay, because if you look at what the state generates every month, we have more than enough.
But you did mention if he was to pay continually, then there will be less for capital investments.
That's why I'm telling why it will be less. It's not because of the minimum wage. It will be less for what we are going to have less to implement capital projects, because the governor has a lot of people in his party that he has to satisfy their interests. And remember that the governor is not going to use his personal money to to impress these people, we have to impress them with the state's resources. Are you getting my point? And to them, to politicians, to these APC politicians, that is more paramount, because they don't think about the people. They think about their personal survival. They think about their political future. They want to remain there. They feel that they are there now because it's these people that actually made it possible for them. Are you getting my point? So they will not want to sacrifice that. So now it will now be at the detriment. So they will continue to pay the minimum wage. They will continue to satisfy the interest of those people. Then they will now have less for capital projects. But if they have less to spend on, if they are focusing less on the interest of politicians, so definitely they are going to have more than enough for capital projects.
No.
Why they still continue to pay?
Just
the
before we
minimum
go,
wage.
we're almost out of time already. People tend to see Ondo as a civil servant-based economy state. Is there a way this could change in the next 4 years to become probably a private enterprise-based economy?
Well, I don't see it changing anytime soon. If they say it's a civil service state, they are correct. It's actually more or less like a civil service state, because but if they refuse to pay state government now, I mean state workers, you feel the effect, you feel the impact everywhere. So it's a civil, and I don't see it changing anytime soon, because the governor that we have now, they are only making promises that they are not likely to, that they are not achievable even in the next 4 years.
We can't really say
because,
for now. I mean,
for example, when in 2023, when the president was campaigning, the president came to town and made an announcement that it was going to, the port in the Ondo South, that they were going to, that the port would start by 2025. Now this is 2024. We have not seen anything. That means it was just a political statement. Now during this campaign, the governor also made the same statement. So you don't spend 2 years to build the kind of port they are talking about. You don't spend 3 years or 4 years. And if you don't have that kind of investment in the state, then it will continue to remain a civil service state. And since there is no any hope of investment in the horizon, so it can be, so we can safely conclude that for the next 4 years, the state will continue to rely on the income being generated from the monthly allocation coming from the federal government, and also from the from the one we generated internally.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us on this.
Yes,
program.
Thank you for having me.
Time is always a constraint, but well, we might talk more about this some other time.
Which of course bring us to the close for Daybreak Africa for the morning, but of course we'll be here same time, same station tomorrow morning. You have a wonderful day ahead. I remain Ezekiel Ogar.
And I'm Angela Daku.